Hi guys, I'm Meg. I'm one of the trainers on staff over at the Humane Society of Western Montana. Thank you for joining us for another Behavior Spotlight. Hopefully you've been tuning in to our previous Behavior Spotlights. We go over topics like coming when called, um, not jumping up. We have some really great puppy basics as well. Tiff has been spearheading those with her puppy Paya on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Today's topic, chill out, which essentially is encouraging your dog to perform calmer behaviors. This dovetails nicely off of what Tiff presented on yesterday, which is working with your puppies around distractions out in the community. A lot of the tips that she spoke about are really helpful for some adult dogs as well. Today I want to talk about some tips and tricks. If you have an excitable adolescent dog or a younger dog who even after outings maybe has difficulty settling, comes home, immediately picks up the tennis ball and looks for a round of fetch. If you have a dog that gets excited to be fed or go outside, to go on walks. We're also going to talk about ways to help your dog if your dog is social, become patio ready when we're no longer in a pandemic, and encourage them to perform calm behaviors out in public as well. So just a starter disclaimer, these exercises are not intended to address reactivity. And by reactivity, I mean dogs that bark or lunge on leash or at barriers. Reactivity is a little bit more complex. It is normal for dogs to be excited and lunging or straining towards other dogs or people out of excitement. But if your dog is having bigger reactions than that, these topics may not directly address those. So if you do have questions outside of what I present here today, I'll be sharing our resources at the end, an email you can reach us at, and at any point, feel free to drop questions in the chat about calm behaviors as well. So let's get started. I have my dog Volta here today. She's already really impressively chilled out on her bed, which is where I like her when we're not directly interacting. It's just relaxing and vegetating. And Volta has been rewarded or reinforced for laying on her bed, which is why she's performing all these calm behaviors right now. The first thing that I want to talk about is a little bit of a different concept. Maybe in our previous live streams that you've watched, we've talked about things like lures, which are great ways to teach your dog new behaviors, new tricks. But I want to talk about something called capturing. And capturing is one of my favorite forms of dog training, maybe because it's a little bit more lazy. All I really have to do is watch my dog and reward them when they choose the behavior I'm looking for. So we're not directly asking our dogs to do anything, but we're rewarding them when they make the choice, for instance, to perform calmer behaviors. So in training, we call this capturing calm. And we're going to go over capturing calm in a multitude of respects today. But I first want to introduce you to the concept. So if you've tuned into our previous live streams, we use something often called the marker. And a marker is just a signal you give your dog to let them know the behavior they're performing is what you're looking for and a reward is coming. So for instance, the word good or yes. If you've done clicker training, a clicker is also a marker. But for the purposes of calm exercises, I actually encourage you to use a verbal marker, which is great, especially if you don't have a clicker at home. I should note, if you do want to practice along with your dog at home, some of the materials that you will need are a bed or a mat, if you so choose, your dog's evening ration, some of their kibble or treats, a leash if you want to practice some of the patio behaviors that I'm talking about, and of course, your dog. So capturing, utilizing the marker, for instance, my dog is currently laying nicely on her bed. Again, I didn't ask her to go lay on her bed. I could have before the live stream started and you didn't see it, but I didn't. But because she chose to perform this behavior on her own, I'm going to capture it. So you can think of capturing as taking a picture of a behavior your dog is performing that you want to see more of. So think of your marker as like that button on a camera, right? I love what you're doing. I want to see more of it. So right now she's laying on her bed. Yes. And I'm going to feed her a treat because I want her to do that more in the future. Now let's say, for instance, that my dog was really, really excited. Let's say that the UPS man had just showed up at the front door and knocked. She started barking. The UPS man dropped off the package and then went away. If you have a dog that maybe stirs around and is a little more anxious for 5 minutes, you can use capture and calm in a situation like that. Because my dog is already a little bit calm, I'm going to maybe entice her or get her a little bit jazzed. So if you have a dog at home and your dog is fairly calm, you can manufacture those exciting experiences by getting your dog excited with a toy or with your body or with your voice. And then you're going to capture 3 to 5 calm behaviors or until you feel your dog is sufficiently calm. Now, I know that kind of sounds all a little bit nebulous, but we're going to walk through it together and talk about different scenarios. So I'm going to get my dog a little bit jazzed. And what I'm going to do is she's probably going to start jumping up. Maybe she'll get wiggly, maybe because we sometimes do wrestling together because she's a well-trained 3-year-old adult dog. She might mouth me a little bit. And then after I get her jazzed, I'm going to stand calmly like a statue and ignore all of those excitable behaviors. I'm going to watch my dog and wait for a calmer behavior than what she was just doing. So if my dog, for instance, was jumping up or mouthing me and I stop and stand like a statue, the next calmer behavior might be her standing still for even a brief moment. If your dog is excited about the UPS man and they're barking, maybe it's when they've stopped barking. I'm going to use my marker and deliver a treat. And then I'm going to continue watching her and see if she offers increasingly calm behaviors like continuing to stand still, sitting, laying down, so on and so forth. So I'm going to get my dog a little jazz maybe. She's pretty sleepy. I've got her toy she had as a puppy, her very dirty duck, right? So I'm gonna get her kind of jazzed and excited about her duck toy, which is losing stuffing because she put a hole in it. Yay, woo, right? And I'm getting her all excited about her toy. And now I'm gonna stand, yes. And Volta is a veteran, right? Your dog may not immediately offer a sit. She's continuing to sit, yes. So I'm going to use my marker word and deliver a treat. She offered a down. I didn't ask for it, but I like that she's doing it, yes. I like that she's continuing to lay down, yes. For even just a couple of seconds. Now, if your dog is jumping up on you or mouthing you, or maybe you just get them a little too excited, ignore all of those jumping up, pawing, demand barking, attention-seeking behaviors, and wait for them to offer even a brief moment of calm. The problem with acknowledging all of those jumping up behaviors, like telling them to get off or pushing them down, they might think that you're playing and get even more amped. So I know it can be hard if your dog is really, really excitable. But let's say again that the UPS man just showed up and then went away. My dog is still kind of looking, still a little bit worked up. Maybe, for instance, you know, we just had company over. My dog is having a hard time settling after the fact. So I'm going to see if I can get her jazzed again. She's just so good because we've been doing this for a long time. Because she's a very excitable dog. You can get your workout in this way too. Yes. So offering a sit and continuing to offer a sit. Yes. She offered a down, if you can see her just a little bit on screen. Even if she pops back up, that's okay. I'm just going to stand. She's still standing calmly. Yes. Yes. Continuing to sit calmly. Now she's laying down, yes. And so on and so forth. So if you have any questions about capturing calm, feel free to drop those in the chat. I'm happy to address them or anything about other calm behaviors. And I'm going to move on to a different scenario utilizing this behavior. So how many of your dogs, when you pick up their leash, go wild or get really, really excited because leashes are paired with going out into the world, access to smells, access to dogs, access to other people, which is normal. So you can practice this exercise simply by picking up your dog's leash and helping them practice so that when it is time to pick up their leash, they don't go hog wild. Now, once my dog is calm, I can leash her up and bring her outside. So using those calm behaviors as a start button for the things that she wants. Now, your dog might not be very, very food motivated, and treats are great and all, but really they just want to go on the walk. So that walk itself, the access to going on the walk, is reinforcing or rewarding those calm behaviors that she just performed. What could happen, however, is if my dog is going hog wild and I leash her and just let her go on a walk, she's learning that my job is to get really, really excited. My human maybe gets a little frustrated trying to clip the leash on. And then we get to go on the walk, and that's awesome. So I want to encourage you, especially if you pick up their harness, their collar, your leash, to just take a few moments, grab a handful of their kibble. Hopefully, if you're going out into the community with a puppy or an adolescent dog, you're bringing a few treats along anyway. And just take a few moments. Bolt is really good at this exercise. She doesn't even get jazzed at all. Yes, right, when I pick up her leash, because I have rewarded her for choosing calm behaviors in order to go on the walk. She knows that her laying down and behaving calmly is her access to those things. So it would be really hard for me to show you just because she doesn't get excited with the leash, but feel free to take a few moments with your dog if you do want to try and practice this with them and just pick up their leash. I'm going to practice a few repetitions by getting my dog jazzed again, standing like a statue, and then rewarding those calm behaviors. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm gonna get my workout in today. She doesn't like my lower face. Good, you feel good. If I had a puppy, she would make me look bad. Yes. Yes. Continuing to sit, yes. Yes, offer to lie down. Excellent. So now, if this were my dog who got excited with her leash, I could say, okay, and clip that leash and take my dog on the walk. Awesome. I should note, or a tip for you, is if you're using your marker word with your dog, they do feed off our energy quite a bit. You may notice I'm using kind of a high-pitched voice for my marker, but I definitely want to be loud enough so you guys can hear me. But I encourage you to, when you're using your marker, use it kind of in a calm tone of voice. The reason being is, if I'm capturing calm with my dog and I say, yes, right, and my voice is excited, she may think, oh, wow, this is really exciting. Yes. Her ears perked up. Yes. She's taking treats a little bit harder. Maybe it's because of the way that I'm saying this. Yes. Right, even when I said the marker that time, her whole body jolted. Versus, now that she's laying down or performing a calm behavior. Yes. Yes. Excellent. All right. So you can also do this if your dog is having difficulty settling. So let's say that you're laying on the couch and you're just trying to enjoy some Netflix. I know the last thing that you want to do is train your dog, but if you're feeling motivated, and we're going to talk about alternatives to that later, you can just grab a handful of your dog's kibble and wait for them to perform calmer behaviors than what they were doing previously. So let's say I were to sit down on the couch and my dog picks up the tennis ball and brings it to me for attention. If I start playing fetch with her, now she thinks when my human is being calm, if I bug her, now she'll interact with me. So just like these other forms of capturing calm behaviors, you should ignore those attention-seeking behaviors and reward something that's calmer than the next. So if I were to sit down with my dog and she started nosing me or pawing me, or she went to get a toy and bring it to me. Yes, she's just too good. But I like that instead of standing in front of me and wagging her tail, she's now laying down. So a little bit more advanced maybe than your dog who's a little bit excited. Yes, I love that she laid her head down, which is even more calm. Though whether or not she's doing that because that's also a trick of hers, I don't know. Yes, like I like that her put her head down. Even if she pops back up, she's being rewarded for performing a calmer behavior than before. So you may notice she just cocked her hip a little bit. So even when her hip goes out to the side, that means that she's less likely to spring up out of that down. So if you reward your dog for a down and they lay down, that's excellent. But if they're very square, they're probably not totally calm. When dogs relax, their spine kind of loosens and their hips pivot out. So you can always look for that pivot as well. Yes, I like that she's still laying down. She went a little more square. Yes, she put her head down, which is what I like. Excellent. All right. So the important part about capturing calm or these exercises is, just like with anything, you should start with scenarios that are easier for your dog first. So if you have a 2-year-old dog that has been practicing for 2 years, getting jazzed and super excited the moment that you pick up their leash, this may be a really difficult concept for them. And I don't want you to feel frustrated either. So you can try practicing with easier scenarios. Every dog is different. Maybe something easier for my dog would be when she's pacing in the living room in the evenings and there's nothing really happening. I'll practice capturing calm. Now maybe that she understands the concept, I'll practice when my dog gets excited when someone comes and knocks on the door and goes away. Or maybe I'll do capturing calm with my dog with a few pieces of kibble out of her bowl before I put that bowl down. So if your dog gets overexcited for meal times, you can do the same thing. If I were to pull out a bowl, I don't know if my dog would get excited. She very rarely is fed out of a bowl. She's usually fed out of feeder toys. But if I had a bowl that had my dog's kibble in it, and let's say my dog is barking or jumping or getting super excited for her food, I can just reward calm behaviors before I put that bowl down. So for your dog, like I said, the ultimate goal or the ultimate reward could just be access to the thing that they really want using those calm behaviors, making them more likely to perform calm behaviors in the future. Again, what the beauty of this exercise is you're not asking your dog to do anything. I'm not asking her to lay down. I'm not asking her to sit or to be calm or to, go somewhere else, like go away. So it takes a lot of the reliance off of me constantly having to be on top of my dog. And I'm rewarding her for the things that I really like so that when I do choose to sit and lie on the couch and watch Netflix, my dog knows it's more rewarding for her to just go lay down because that's how she gets access to the good things in life. So if this were my dog's bowl of kibble, I don't have a bowl handy, I could have grabbed one. I love that she's laying down. Yes. So I'm going to grab a kibble out of the bowl. Yes. Yes. I could even gradually lower the bowl down. Yes. And now that she's calm, okay, and she can have the rest of the kibble that's remaining in the bowl. I'm going to just check and see if we have any questions about this. No questions so far. That's excellent. So I want to talk about the patio scenario. And maybe your dog, this is kind of a higher level, right? And not all patios are created equal. So in non-pandemic times, if you're taking your dog downtown on a Saturday to a patio and you're expecting them to sit calmly while there are people and dogs walking by, that's going to be really, really hard. So if you have a puppy or a younger dog who's not used to settling in public spaces or performing calm behaviors in public spaces, the first place that I recommend you practicing is in your living room. There's no distractions, or there should be limited distractions. There's no other dogs unless you have other dogs loose in the house, in which case you can put them away for a few minutes. And then when you want to increase the difficulty for your dog, begin adding distractions like letting the other dogs out or let the kids move through the living room while you're practicing. So again, we're using capturing calm for this exercise. I'm watching my dog to see if she performs calmer behaviors than the next and rewarding those. The one thing that I really like particularly about this patio exercise is it can also translate for your dog to when my person is seated, I should lay down or perform calm behaviors. So you can practice this with your couch, but I like doing this with a chair. Mostly because dining room chairs are a little bit closer to what you would be seated on in public. You could also practice this if it's a really slow time and you've practiced a time or two in your living room out on a bench at a park, and help your dog learn to settle in those spaces as well. Maybe you want your dog to come along while you're enjoying lunch out at the park. This is a great way to begin teaching that skill. So I'm going to put my dog on leash. If you have your dog, if you have a chair readily accessible, or if you just want to use a piece of living room furniture, feel free to practice along with me. But I'm going to clip this leash to my dog. She's already calm, so I'm just going to reset her. And then I'm going to sit down. Hopefully you can see me. And I'm going to wait for my dog to perform a calmer behavior than the next. Yes. Again, she's a veteran, right? If your dog, she knows that her job when I'm seated in a chair, because I practiced this with her so many times, is to immediately lay down or sit or behave calmly. Yes, she cocked her hip out, which is what I was talking about earlier. If you noticed, you can always rewind a little bit. She went from a square down to pushing her hip. And again, I'm just holding her leash like this. If your dog is rotating or pacing, I would just simply ignore those behaviors. You could wait for even a brief moment where they're standing still. Yes, and then feed a treat to your dog. If they continue standing still, yes, and feed a treat. As I said, yes, I'm going to give her a treat, because if you use your marker, a reward should always follow. Yes. She's continuing to lay down, which I love. So she knows it's her job when I'm seated like this in a chair, mimicking what it would be like on a patio. Her job is to lay calmly at my feet. Yes. Now let's say your dog gets really good at this. You may think, okay, am I always going to have to bring treats to the patio? And how long am I going to have to reward these calm behaviors? So as your dog is gradually performing calmer and calmer behaviors, or you see them begin to settle, you can begin to space out the time between those rewards. So for instance, my dog has been laying down now for, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds or so. It's okay if she pops up, but now I'm going to say yes. And maybe I'm going to count to my head to 15 next time. Yes. And so on and so forth. You don't always, want to make it harder and harder. So randomly rewarding your dog for a shorter repetition between. So for instance, I don't want to do 10 seconds and then 15 seconds and then 30 seconds and then 10 minutes. I may want to throw a few easy or freebie ones in there to keep my dog working with me. Now, over time, right, your dog is going to learn the most rewarding thing is to remain settled when my person is seated. Just going to check and see if we have any other questions. No questions. I hope that means that I'm being succinct and very direct and non-confusing. Excellent. So kind of some additional tips. A lot of people with dogs who have difficulty settling, I'm going to move this chair, they think that the key to helping their dog settle is to give them more exercise. Right? They think, oh, I just can't exercise this dog enough. We went on a hike on Blue Mountain. We went to the dog park for 2 hours. I brought them home and they're still just not settling. They're looking to play fetch. They're seeking attention. if your dog has already been adequately exercised or mentally stimulated. So most experts recommend at least 30 minutes of exercise for your dog a day. If you're inside, or maybe your dog is a bit older, their needs may not be as much. Or if you've been doing other enriching activities like training, they may not need as much. Every dog is different. But let's say that you feel, okay, we just went on an hour-long hike. You should be tired and you're not settling. Practice these exercises with your dog instead. Otherwise, you could be inadvertently creating a better athlete, right? So if we work out 5 days a week, we're going to get stronger. We're going to need more repetitions in order to continue to build that muscle mass. And it's the same way for our dogs. If we become reliant on exercising them into the ground, they're going to need all of that exercise in the future to ever learn to settle, which makes things difficult if your dog, for instance, ever has to undergo surgery and they need a couple of weeks of downtime and you can't exercise them. In which case, if your dog is in that current situation, I recommend you viewing our indoor dog games. Some are appropriate for that, but also practicing these kinds of exercises with your pup. So a few final tips for you. Capturing calm isn't always the answer if you know your dog is going to fail. If you just think, wow, this is a really, really exciting situation for my dog, I know they always explode, management may be the better option. So if your dog isn't quite ready, for instance, to have 6 or 7 people over to your house, which I hope you're not doing right now during this pandemic, but in the future, the best thing could be to do is to put them in a safe space. So an additional room with a food project, give them something to do in there. Or if your dog is crate trained, just simply putting them in their crate to have some downtime. If you are interested in using a crate for your dog and you haven't started that process, or you're not sure why to do it, I did a behavioral spotlight on crate training last Thursday. So feel free to scroll through our Facebook page and reference that. Otherwise, it should be available in the near future on our YouTube page. I know we're working diligently to get those up. So another option, I mean, you've heard me talk about food projects and food toys. You will hear Tiff and I talk about enrichment, and maybe we'll do a spotlight specifically on that in the future, but they can be a lifesaver for busy dogs. So if you have a dog that's super energetic or super busy, using food toys like Kongs, kibble toys like wobblers or slow bowls, thoughtfully using them when you guys are trying to relax, when you're trying to have human meal times, even additionally, if you wanted to use a crate as well, can encourage them to perform calm and static behaviors, and they are self-reinforcing. So it's really hard for a dog, for instance, to be pacing around the living room or bugging you to play fetch while you're eating dinner if they're busy eating a Kong. So they're learning, when my people are eating, my job is to simply relax and enjoy my food toy. So I'm going to grab a couple food toys for you real quick. I'm not going to go too in depth about them, but I want you to know what I'm talking about if they're new to you. Great. So for instance, this is a toy that I can put some of my dog's kibble in. It's a little bit more active, right? Your dog still has to move around to get the kibble out. Same thing with this very beloved and well-worn Kong wobbler toy. She just puts her kibble in it, and then she has to knock it around to get the kibbles out. Or Kongs, we talk about Kongs very frequently. Moisten their kibble with warm water and canned food, shove it in there, give it to them to extricate while you're enjoying your meal to encourage your dog to settle. Or something like a licky mat. These are pretty inexpensive, which is what I love about these. This one has a suction cup to use for things like the bathtub, but they make flat ones as well. But just giving your dog something to mentally stimulate themselves and encourage them to settle when more exciting things are happening, like when you have company over, when you're enjoying human meal times. And again, always work gradually. We would never hand a 16-year-old the keys to our car and go teach them to drive on the freeway. So that's why we practice these skills in our living room first. And if you are out in the community practicing with your pup these skills, like the patio skills, sitting on a bench with your dog, I recommend that you carry higher value food. So chicken, hot dog, cheese, and teeny pea-sized pieces, because you need to be more rewarding than all the distractions in the environment. Well, I think that's about all I have. I'm just going to check and see if I have any other questions here. And I don't see any, but I do want to bring up our resources so that if you do have questions, or maybe your dog's excitable behavior is a bit more complex than what I addressed, I certainly want you to have access to myself. So thank you for tuning in. We are a privately funded nonprofit organization. So any amount that you can donate goes towards the continuation of these programs and the care of our shelter pets. If you have questions, behavior@myhswm.org. TIFF is offering amazing puppy classes on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. We will be continuing those, as well as our behavior spotlights Thursdays at 6 p.m. for now until the foreseeable future. And again, we're working on putting all of these videos on YouTube, but if you don't see the video you're looking for on our YouTube channel yet, feel free to scroll back through our Facebook Live videos, and they should all be available for you there in their full forms. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much for joining us, and hope to see you guys soon.